All right. Hello again, adventurers, and welcome to another exciting episode of D&D Deep Dive, the show that dives deep into classes, subclasses, and other features of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons to help you get the most out of your choices. So, today, we are going to be looking at something rather tragic. That is, the College of Tragedy Bard from Tal'Dorei campaign setting Reborn, Critical Role's newest book. Quick update. I mentioned I got the PDF because I wanted to be able to review it and everything. My book came. I told you guys before, this is the original Tal'Dorei campaign setting. And, you know, it's a decent sized book. This is Tal'Dorei Reborn. As you can see, there's a little bit difference. It is almost a whole new book, and the College of Tragedy Bard is not in the original book. I also do want to point out this is the map that came with it. The map that came with the original one was actually perforated. You tore it out of the back of the book. This one comes in its own little pocket, which I gotta say is so much better. It doesn't matter how great you perforate something, I will find a way to rip it. And this is the map. Look at how gorgeous that is! Oh! So yes, I'm very, very happy about this. It goes literally, there's this little pocket right there, and that's where it goes. I hope to have it hung up on my wall eventually. I have to figure out how I want to do it. I may frame it and put it up just so I don't damage the map this time. I don't know. We'll figure that out. Anyway, let's talk about bards. Quick reminder, if you are enjoying this, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, hit the bell icon, turn notifications on. All of those things help the video do better and help me know that you guys actually enjoy this stuff. So, quick refresher on 5th edition class design. In 5th edition, every class is designed to play very, very differently right from the beginning. In order to do that, every class has these things that we call defining features. A defining feature is either something that is unique to the class, or maybe it's not unique, but they get it earlier or can use it in a different way than any other class. And in order for something to be considered a defining feature, it needs to show up within the first 2 levels. For a subclass, they should somehow interact with at least one of the defining features. So that's one of the reasons why I always mention that before I start going into a subclass. So what are the Bard's defining features? Well, they have 2 kind of real main defining features. The first one that they get right at first level is called Bardic Inspiration. My only issue with Bardic Inspiration is the fact that it shares the name, shares a word with DM Inspiration, which is a completely different thing. Bardic Inspiration, the Bard can use a bonus action to give a D6 to another player that they can use on certain rolls. And depending on your subclass, you can kind of expand what you can do with that. The base version of it allows them to use it on, I believe it's attack rolls, saving throws, and skill checks. And then, depending on your subclass, you get a lot other things. Excuse me. So, that is one of the big things with the Bard, is a Bard can help everyone else do better, which is really, really good. The other kind of defining feature of the Bard comes at 2nd level, and this is a traditional Bard thing. This has been a thing for Bards since they were first introduced, I believe, in Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 1st edition, I think is when the Bard first shows up. I don't think it was in original D&D. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments down below. But Jack of all trades, basically, normally, if you are not proficient in a skill, you're not trained in it, you don't get to add your proficiency bonus to skill checks made with it, but you still get to add your attribute bonus if you have any. For a Bard with Jack of all trades, they can add half their proficiency bonus to any roll that they are not normally, any skill check that they're not normally proficient with. So it does mean that the Bard can be that jack of all trades. They can do a little bit of everything, which makes them very, very useful for just filling a niche and then picking their subclass to kind of further define how they're going to fill that niche in the party. So that being said, how does the College of Tragedy interact with this? Well, I'm glad you asked. Let's dive into the actual subclass. At 3rd level, the first thing you get is Poetry in Misery. Whenever you or an ally within 30 feet of you rolls a 1 on a d20 for an attack roll, ability check, or saving throw, you can use your reaction to soliloquize and regain 1 expended use of your Bardic Inspiration feature. So, this seems really, really simple, and it's not. Bardic Inspiration can be kind of game-breaking. And by what I mean by that is the range of difficulty classes in 5th edition is not massive. It goes from 0 to 30, and in general, you normally won't find a difficulty class above 20 until you get to like tier 3, tier 4 content, with a few rare exceptions. Like if you decide that you're going to try and lift up a castle, well, that's going to be a DC like 40 check, despite the fact that DC 30 is considered impossible. So because of that, being able to add in the Bardic Inspiration die, you get to add a die to your rolls with Bardic Inspiration. The die gets bigger as the Bard levels up. So even when you start getting to those higher levels, you can have up to a D12 Bardic Inspiration die. Being able to add 12 plus any other modifiers you have is really massive. So Bardic Inspiration has limited uses, unless you're a College of Tragedy Bard and are playing with me. I roll really, really poorly. Like impressive, like beating math kind of poorly. And so I roll 1s all the time. I am very, very happy that it doesn't say whenever you or an ally or the DM rolls a 1, because then any College of Tragedy bard that ever played at one of my tables would just always have Bardic Inspiration. Just would never run out. But this is a really, really big deal. And the thing I like most about it is everybody hates rolling 1s. If you don't play D&D and you're just watching it, I don't know why you would be watching this if you don't play D&D, or maybe you just haven't played it a ton. Because I'm not that interesting, to be blunt. What happens when you roll a 1 on an attack roll? That's an instant fail. At some tables with vindictive mean DMs, they actually make you have a critical fumble, which I've talked about critical fumbles before. I think they're specifically there to punish players for random chance. They're not fun in any way, shape, or form. They just make the game more punishing. And it tends to be something that DMs enjoy significantly more than players. But even without that, a natural 1 is almost always going to be a failure of whatever you're doing. And myself included, if somebody rolls a nat 1 on like a skill check or something, I'm going to make it a little extra embarrassing for the failure aspect of it. Not any mechanical failures, but I'm gonna relish in it. So most people hate rolling nat 1s. They're just not fun. This one specifically kind of puts a little icing on the crap cake, which is, you're going to roll in a nat 1, but your bard is going to get one of their inspiration back, and as you see the rest of this subclass, there's a lot that they could do that's really, really useful. So it almost kind of turns into, nat 1, nat 1, nat 1. Things like disadvantage are no longer nearly as ugly as you would think, because the more chance of a nat 1, the more chance that your bard's going to be able to help you do something else. Still, nat 1s are not going to be great, but I love the fact that the first thing this bard gets is, oh, you failed? Yay for me! And normally that would kind of suck, except for the fact that the bard is built in 5th edition to be a character that works best when you are supporting your entire party, not just yourself. I think there's like one bardic subclass where you can play a very quote-unquote selfish bard, where you use most of your bardic inspiration only for yourself in your own roles. But in general, if you want to get the most out of a bard, you need to be spreading out the inspiration and knowing who the best people to give the inspiration to are. So I kind of like the fact that this is a bard that gets something good when they or other people do something bad, and then more likely than not, they're going to use that to make the party good. So it improves the whole to the team. It's cool. So yeah, that's poetry and misery. Also at the third level, you get Sorrowful Fate. When you are an ally, you can see forces a creature to make a saving throw. You could expend one use of your bardic inspiration to change the type of saving throw to a charisma save instead. If the target fails a save, roll a bardic inspiration die. The target takes psychic damage equal to the result and is plagued with regret for 1 minute. If the target is reduced to 0 hit points during this time and can speak, they are magically compelled to utter darkly poetic final words before succumbing to their injuries. Once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a short or long rest. So, there's a lot to unpack here. First things first, one and done abilities. I've talked about this in other videos. One and done abilities generally tend to fall into what I call the elixir paradox. Or the elixir problem. And that's basically, in games like Final Fantasy, there are items called elixirs. Elixirs fully restore your hit points and magic points. They're very, very useful. But you can't buy them, steal them, anything in the game. There is a fixed number of elixirs in the game. So it tends to happen to a lot of players is they will get elixirs throughout the game and they will just never use them. Because like, well, what if I need it for the next boss? Or what if I need it for the final boss? Then you get to the final boss and you're so used to just never using the elixir because it's too good that you end the game with like 13 elixirs. And you don't need to. But that's how our brains work, is when something's really, really special and really, really limited, we will save it for the absolute perfect right time. So I tend to not be a huge fan of one and done abilities in D&D because the exact same thing happens. Even just turning a one and done ability into a two and done ability, it will get used significantly more. Not just because you can use it twice instead of once, but when there's only one use remaining, people will use that final use significantly more than when they only have one use to start with. It's a psychology thing. So when there are one and done abilities, they need to be powerful. They need to be justifiably one and done abilities. Now this one is a short rest one and done, so it's not quite as permanent as a long rest one and done. It's still a one and done. Do I think that this is powerful enough to be a one and done ability? Oh yeah. Charisma saves are some of the rare saves in the game. Not a ton of creatures have massive charismas. Generally, especially the ones that are the most difficult to kill, are going to have high constitution scores and high dexterity scores, and will generally have proficiency in either dex saves, constitution saves, or both, because those are the absolute most common saves for doing damage and things like that. And then wisdom saves tend to be the other ones that bosses will, especially high level ones, will start getting better, because wisdom saves save you against things like paralysis or mind control, things like that. Charisma saves are remarkably rare, and they generally tend to be for things like mind control is another thing that tends to be a charisma save. Wisdom and charisma are both in that. But that's really about it. You don't really have much charisma saves. So being able to change anything into a charisma saving throw can be absolutely massive, because changing something like a monk's stunning strike from a con save to a charisma save is a massive, massive change, especially if you're trying to stun something like a giant. Giants are almost impossible to stun. I know this from playing a monk. Giants will have like plus 12 or plus 14 to their con saves. They're just really, really massive creatures that have great constitutions. But being able to flip that, there's a ton of useful stuff from stunning a creature. Things that like it breaks concentration immediately because you are not unconscious. You are incapacitated. Everything has advantage on attack rolls against it. It has disadvantage on all its saving throws. It auto fails. I believe it auto fails strength and dex saves. I'm actually not sure about disadvantage on other saving throws, but I know it auto fails strength and dex saves. And probably the most useful, at least for a monk stun, it lasts until the end of the monk's next turn. It's really, really useful. It takes out an entire turn of their actions. And for legendary creatures, that takes out an entire turn of legendary actions as well. Being able to use this at the right time is going to be super great. I also love the fact that they have to utter poetic final words. Like, that is icing on the cake. That is just beautiful and wonderful. But it's a really useful thing. And again, this is going to work best if you know your party. You have to know which one of your party members is going to have the most useful thing, where you definitely want them to fail the save. This is going to encourage talking with your party members and strategizing during combat. I know there are some DMs that don't like that kind of cross-talk strategy kind of talk. I encourage it at my table because I think it makes the game a lot more fun. And I think too many people for too long have discouraged the idea of talking with the rest of your party. Because if you watch any like action scene in a movie where there's multiple people, they're communicating. If it's like a Marvel movie, Captain America is shouting off commands and stuff like that. And even if there's not talking, they are communicating by looking at each other and noticing that. And, for a team to really work well together, they have to be communicating. And you see this in every kind of team-up style movie ever. You can see them when they start combining their abilities into the things like that. They have to communicate, and that's what D&D is. I just love everything about Sorrowful Fate. I think it's great. I'm not sure if... I think right now it absolutely is good enough to be a one-and-done ability on a short rest. However, part of me would almost prefer it to be you can use twice between long rest instead of once per short rest. Just again, because one-and-done abilities just don't get used as often, even with the short rest thing. But I think this will work the way it is. I think I might like it slightly better with 2 per long rest instead of 1 per short rest. Anyway, moving on. At 6th level, you get Tale of Hubris. When a creature scores a critical hit against you or an ally within 60 feet of you, that you can see, you can use your reaction and expend 1 use of your Bardic Inspiration to target the attacking creature and evoke the story of their downfall for a minute, or until the target suffers a critical hit. Any weapon attack against the target scores a critical hit on a roll of 18 to 20 at 14th level. Critical hit range of this feature increases to 17 to 20. Expanding criticals is a really, really useful thing, specifically if you have particular classes in your party. Barbarians are crit machines. Paladins work really, really well with crits. And rogues work really, really well with crits. The fact that this is linked to getting a critical hit against you, again, I love the fact that when a bad guy rolls a critical hit against you, it sucks. It really, really sucks. I rolled 3 crits against one of my players a couple sessions ago, and actually ended up I killed the player, unfortunately. They were able to resurrect, and it turned into another interesting plot point for that adventure. But it really, really sucks when you get hit with criticals, unless you have Tale of Hubris, because that basically means the likelihood of you rolling an 18 to 20 or 17 to 20 eventually gets exponentially higher the more people that attack it. And if everybody is aware, hey, you have a significantly better chance to crit on any attack rolls with this, they're going to change they're going to change their stuff up. Combining this with something like Fairy Fire, or anything that can give advantage to its attack rolls makes it significantly more likely that someone's going to get a crit. And using abilities that are going to get the best benefit from a crit, something like Disintegrate, which requires an attack roll, and if you crit on it, that means you do double damage, and if you reduce them to 0, they go turn it into nothingness. Choose your abilities wisely when this goes on, but if you do, this turns into something really massive. And the likelihood of you not getting a crit in a minute when your expanded crit range, 18 to 20, that's a 15% chance. 17 to 20, that's a 20% chance. So within 5 rolls after level 14, you should have at least 1 crit from a statistical standpoint, which 5 rolls is easily 1 or 2 rounds, and 1 minute is 10 rounds. So I don't see this ever not being good unless the creature dies before someone gets a crit, and that would be the one time you might not want to use Tale of Hubris, because you'd be wasting a Bardic Inspiration if they die before somebody gets a crit. So that's the only thing you have to go, ooh, maybe I want to wait on this. This dude looks like he's almost dead. Maybe I'll wait for someone else. Though killing someone with a crit is also really fun. So it's up to you. Moving on. Also at 6th level, you get Impending Misfortune. When you make an attack roll or a saving throw, you can gain a plus 10 bonus to the roll, but the next attack roll or saving throw you make takes a minus 10 penalty. If not used, this penalty disappears when you finish a short or long rest. You can't use this feature again until you finish a short or long rest, or until you reduce to 0 hit points. So this is another one that they just keep adding new kind of, I don't want to call them mechanics, but just new ways to get recharges, and I love it. So this one, again, is one of those things where I badly need to make this. Okay, so I'm going to basically make a deal with the devil kind of thing here, where a plus 10 means you're probably, even on a nat 1, unless it is an attack roll where nat 1's always missed no matter what your bonuses are. Everything else you can technically succeed on a nat 1 if your bonuses are high enough. So even on a nat 1, a plus 10 bonus might turn that into a success. And anything above that, you're generally that's going to do this. Specifically, it says when you make an attack roll or saving throw, you can gain a plus 10 bonus to the roll. It says when you make an attack roll or saving throw, not when you succeed or fail or anything like that. So there's a little bit of ambiguity with this in the idea that, well, do you have to declare this before or after you roll? I could read it both ways. I don't think it would be massively broken for you to be able to do it after you make the roll. But because it's specifically not worded like that, I could see a lot of DMs saying, no, you have to choose before you make the roll, which makes it slightly less useful, but not horrible. And I think it fits a little bit more with the theme of Impending Misfortune. Is like, well, I'm going to do well on this so that I effectively fail something the next time I try. And that also means knowing the next saving throw you're going to make or the next thing you're going to do can be very, very useful. Just in the idea that, okay, well, I know that, this spellcaster has been casting up a bunch of hold persons and the things like that. So my next roll might be might happen to be something like that, where I get paralyzed, and that can be really, really bad. And it also can be something where your party can actually intervene into this by basically seeing you do this and then doing like an area attack or something just to force you to make a bad saving throw against something that you know, instead of a bad saving throw against something that you don't. Using a low-level area spell just to get rid of that, and maybe, use the benefits, like maybe using Thunderwave to move a few enemies around and ensure that your rogue is not going to fail something really, really bad, like maybe a disintegration attack, which is an attack roll, so it wouldn't affect that. But yeah, so there's a little bit of thought in that itself. Or things like, I believe there's some paladin abilities that allow them to kind of grant a saving throw to someone. So that might be this is something where they just grant you a saving throw so that you can fail the saving throw when it's not even your turn, and you can get another one when your turn comes up if you have some sort of something on you that needed. Again, there's a lot of ways that you can kind of mitigate that as much as you can. And knowing your party really well is going to help with that. Finally, at 14th level, you get Nimbus of Pathos. You can touch a willing creature as an action and empower it with tragic heroism. For a minute, creature is surrounded by mournful music and ghostly singing, granting it the following benefits and drawbacks. Creature has a +4 bonus to AC. It has advantage on attack rolls and saving throws. When a creature hits a target with a weapon attack or spell attack, the target takes an extra 1d10 radiant damage. Any weapon attack against the creature stores a critical hit on a roll of 18 to 20. When the effect ends, the creature immediately drops to 0 hit points and is dying. And once you use this feature, you can't use it again until you finish a long rest. This is really cool because this kind of feels like Paladin subclass, like ultimate abilities, are what I call transformation abilities. Almost all of them, I think there's one that isn't. Almost all of them are Paladins getting this super cool thing that changes how they work. This is kind of the same basic thing, but you can give it to someone else, and it's it's just, I love everything about this. +4 bonus to AC is a massive, massive deal. However, getting a critical hit on a roll of an 18 or to 20 means effectively your AC is too lower than it would normally be, because they will still hit you if they rolled an 18 or a 19. However, more likely than not, even if they had rolled an 18 or a 19, they were still going to hit you, even with a +4 AC. So, swings and roundabout. Critical hits hurt. You give it to the right character, it can be a little bit better. It also means when this character gets a critical hit, you can use your Tale of Hubris on the creature that did it, and then the creature with the Nimbus of Pathos, if they hit and they get their critical, because any weapon attack or spell attacks, it does an additional d10 of radiant damage. That damage would be doubled on a crit. So there's so many kind of things that work together. I love the fact that the creature dies, or it gets reduced to 0 hit points and starts dying as soon as it's over, because it's such... Everything about this is just really, really fun. There is a hang-up for every benefit in this class, and I love it. I love everything about this. And like I said, giving this to the right character can be game changing. Giving this to the paladin that already gets additional damage on their weapon attacks, this can be really big. Giving this to a monk, which a lot of times monks can find ways to just prevent themselves from getting hit altogether, and they get a lot of attacks. Or giving this to a fighter who just gets a lot of attacks. Or giving this to a ranger who's using, I think it's called Quick Quiver or something like that. Basically, they get 5 attacks in a turn with it. They're knowing who's going to get the most benefit out of this is effectively who makes the most attacks. Giving it to a warlock. Because they make multiple attacks with their Eldritch Blast and can add other things to the Eldritch Blast as well. Figuring out the right person to give this to can be really, really useful. Just don't give it to the only person that can heal in the party. Otherwise, you may be looking for a new party member. So, final thoughts. Overall, I really, really love this bard. I do not think this will ever be the min-maxer's bard of choice. By that, and the reason I mention that, this class is... I don't see a way to really overpower this subclass. Every other subclass, if you combine things, you get feats and stuff like that, you can create some pretty interesting, powerful combos. I don't see a way to ever make this that overpowered, wow, I feel like a god kind of subclass. Because everything they do in the ability itself has a detriment built into the ability. That being said, because of that, I think this class would be more fun to play than any other Kuka class, because everyone's going to roll none of nat ones. Everyone's going to fail checks eventually. That's how the game is played. That's why we use a dice. We use a die, or we use dice to get the right plurals that this is in there. You're going to fail. And failure in storytelling, failure can be a lot more interesting to read than constant success. This rewards your failure. And I am a huge believer in the idea that failure is not the demon that we make it out to be. Failure is the absolute, by far, greatest way to learn anything. You will learn more from failure than you will ever learn from success. And this bard exemplifies that. And I love it. I love everything about it. This is a failure bard. This class feels like it was written for me. And I love everything about it. I think it'll be super, super fun. I do not think it is massively overpowered. I don't think it's underpowered. I think it's just fun. This is the kind of class or this is the kind of subclass you choose to have fun. And at the base of any RPG, it's a game where you're supposed to have fun, and this has it in spades. Anyway, that is going to be all for me today. As always, if you enjoyed this, again, like, subscribe, turn notifications on in the comments down below. Let's talk about failure. Give me just a quick example of the worst Nat 1 story you have. And by worst, I mean the most memorable. I will tell you mine. The first time I ever played D&D 5th edition, it was D&D Next. I was at Gen Con. They were premiering it at Gen Con. It was the very, very start of the playtest for D&D Next. So all the people at the table, this was the first time they had ever played D&D 5th edition, D&D Next at the time. We sat down and somebody got advantage on their roll. This is the first time I had ever heard of the advantage-disadvantage system, as did everyone else at the table. The DM goes, okay, we're going to talk about a new mechanic in 5th edition. It's called advantage-disadvantage. Because what you're doing, you're doing something cool, I'm going to give you advantage. You roll 2d20, you take the higher of the two. The guy rolled double nat 1s. I still have a picture of it on my phone. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen, because we all just went, whoa, really? And I think it was like the first or second roll of the game. So it was the first advantage I'd ever seen. One of the first rolls in a brand new edition of D&D, and it was double nat 1s. Let me know your failure story in the comments down below. Otherwise, again, that is all for me today, and I will see you guys next time. All right? Bye-bye.